The vast emptiness of space surrounded the UES Valiant as it glided through the darkness, its engines humming with quiet power. Captain John Miller sat in his command chair, his eyes fixed on the main screen that showed nothing but distant stars and the occasional asteroid. His ship was on a routine patrol of the outer colonies, a job that had become increasingly dull over the years. Another quiet day in paradise, and he muttered to himself, running a hand through his short brown hair. The year was 2157, and humanity had spread beyond their home system, establishing colonies on nearby stars. After the great push into space in the 2080s, mankind had built homes on 12 different worlds. Yet in all that time they had found no signs of intelligent life. Many had begun to believe that humans were alone in the galaxy. Lieutenant Kate Perry approached the captain's chair with a data pad in hand. "Fuel reserves are at 87%, sir. We can continue patrol for another 3 weeks before heading back to New Terra for resupply." Miller nodded, about to reply when the communications officer interrupted. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Officer Greg Daniels, his fingers moving quickly over his console. "It's not on any UESC frequency." Miller straightened, in his chair. "Put it through." A series of clicks, whistles, and electronic pulses filled the bridge. Everyone froze, recognizing immediately that this was no human transmission. "Is it some kind of equipment malfunction?" Miller asked, though he already suspected the answer. "No, sir," Daniels replied, his voice shaking slightly. "The signal is coming from outside our system, way outside, and there's a pattern to it. This isn't random noise." The bridge fell silent as the reality sank in. After decades of searching, humanity might finally have its answer to the age-old question, "Are we alone?" "Record everything," Miller ordered, "and send a message to UESC Command, Priority Alpha." Admiral Susan Wright stood before the United Earth Council in New Geneva, her uniform crisp and her posture perfect. At 57, she had spent nearly her entire adult life in space, rising through the ranks to become one of Earth's most respected military leaders. "The signal has been analyzed," she explained to the 12 council members. "It contains mathematical sequences that could only be created by an intelligent species. More importantly, it includes coordinates for a meeting and what appears to be a universal time designation." Council President William Ross leaned forward. "They want to meet us?" "Yes, sir. The species calls itself part of something translated as the Galactic Consortium. According to the message, they represent 27 different spacefaring civilizations." A murmur swept through the council chamber. 27 species, all working together, while humanity had believed they were alone. "And they've never contacted us before?" asked Counselor Vega, her face showing clear suspicion. "The message suggests they've been watching us since we developed faster-than-light travel," Wright answered. "They have a policy of observation before contact." Ross stood up. "Admiral Wright, we're assigning you to lead this first contact mission. Take the UESC Horizon and a small escort. This could be the most important moment in human history." Wright nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. "We'll depart within the week, sir." In the intelligence wing of UESC headquarters, Officer Diane Carter worked late into the night. While the rest of the world celebrated the news of alien contact, something bothered her about the translated message. There were sections that the computers couldn't decode, hidden portions that the aliens clearly didn't want humans to see easily. After 3 days of work, she finally broke through the encryption. What she found made her blood run cold. The screen displayed internal communications between consortium members discussing humans. One phrase appeared repeatedly: "Deathworlders." Carter read through the documents, her concern growing. According to consortium classification, Earth was an extreme-class planet with gravity, atmospheric composition, temperature variation, and background radiation that should make intelligent life impossible. The aliens viewed humans as dangerous, by their very nature. Creatures who evolved on a world that would kill most consortium species within minutes. Some messages showed fear. Others showed scientific interest. A few showed something worse, a belief that humans needed to be contained, controlled, or eliminated before they spread further into space. Carter immediately sent her findings to Admiral Wright, now 3 days into her journey to the meeting coordinates. The message would take nearly a day to reach her. The UESC Horizon was the pride of Earth's fleet, a massive diplomatic vessel with all the comforts of home. Admiral Wright stood on its bridge, watching as the ship approached the designated meeting point, a small uninhabited system with a single yellow star similar to Sol. "Any sign of them?" she asked her sensor officer. "Nothing yet, ma'am. Wait. Energy readings at the edge of the system. Big ones." The main screen showed ships emerging from what appeared to be fold space, a technology humans had theorized but never developed. The alien vessels were beautiful, smooth, curved shapes that seemed to flow rather than be built. They glowed with soft blue light and moved with grace that made human ships look clumsy by comparison. "Open communications," Wright ordered, straightening her uniform. The main screen flickered to show a being unlike anything humanity had ever seen. It appeared bird-like, with feathers of deep purple and gold, and 4 eyes set in a face that seemed almost kind. "Greetings, humans," it said, its voice translated through the ship's computers. "I am High Counselor Zri of the Avari, speaking on behalf of the Galactic Consortium. We welcome you to the greater community of space." Wright bowed slightly. "Thank you, High Counselor. I am Admiral Susan Wright of the United Earth Space Command. We are honored to meet you and look forward to peaceful exchange between our peoples." The conversation continued with Zri explaining the consortium's structure, a collection of species that had achieved space travel and agreed to certain principles of non-interference and mutual aid. Wright noticed that while Zri was polite, there was tension in the alien's posture, a wariness when Wright moved suddenly. "We have prepared quarters for your delegation aboard our diplomatic vessel," Zri said eventually. "If you would join us, we can begin formal discussions." Before Wright could answer, her communications officer called out, "Admiral, we're detecting multiple ships entering the system. They're not broadcasting identification." On a secondary screen, Wright watched as a new group of vessels appeared. Unlike the smooth, elegant ships of the Avari, these were angular with sharp lines and glowing red weapons ports. Zri's feathers flattened against his head. "Corvin warships. They were not supposed to be here." "Admiral," the sensor officer called, "the new ships are charging weapons." Wright turned back to the screen. "High Counselor, what is happening?" "I am sorry, Admiral Wright," Zri said, genuine regret in his voice. "The Corvin faction believes Deathworlders cannot be trusted. They fear your kind. I had hoped to prevent this, but..." The transmission cut off as the first energy beams struck the horizon shields. "Battle stations," Wright ordered. "All ships, defensive formation Delta, return fire." The human escort ships moved into position, their weapons seeming primitive compared to the alien technology. The horizon shuddered as another blast hit. "Shields at 40%, someone shouted. Wright knew they were outmatched. "Launch all communication buoys, full data package. Make sure Earth knows what happened here." As the bridge filled with smoke and warning alarms blared, Wright recorded one final message. "This is Admiral Susan Wright of the UESC Horizon. We were attacked without provocation by a faction called the Corvin. They fear us because we evolved on a high-gravity world. If you receive this, prepare Earth's defenses. And remember, we tried peace first." The last human ship to escape the massacre was the small corvette UESC Swift, carrying Lieutenant Peter Reeves and 12 surviving crew members. As the Swift jumped to faster than light, Reeves watched the horizon explode in a brilliant flash of light. He knew that when he delivered his message to Earth, humanity would not take this attack quietly. The sleeping giant would awaken, and the galaxy would learn why creatures from a death world were not to be taken lightly. General Richard Hayes stood motionless as he watched the recording for the third time. The bridge of the UESC Horizon erupted in flames, Admiral Wright's final words cutting off as the screen went black. Around the conference table, the other military leaders of Earth sat in stunned silence. "Play it again," Hayes ordered, his voice rough with emotion. At 62, the general had seen his share of conflicts between human colonies, but nothing had prepared him for this. Lieutenant Peter Reeves, the sole surviving officer from the diplomatic mission, stood at attention nearby. His uniform was still stained with blood, not all of it his own. "Sir, the Corvin ships appeared without warning," Reeves explained. "They targeted the horizon first, then methodically destroyed our escort vessels." The alien who called himself Zri seemed genuinely surprised by the attack. Hayes nodded slowly. "So there's division among these aliens. Some wanted peace, others wanted us dead. Because we're Deathworlders," said Admiral Jack Wilson, commander of Earth's Pacific Fleet. "They're afraid of what we might become." Hayes turned to face the wall-sized display of Earth's current military assets. It wasn't much. After decades of peace, humanity had focused on exploration rather than warfare. The United Earth Space Command had only 37 combat-ready vessels scattered across 12 colonies. "Get me the President," Hayes said finally. The emergency session of the United Earth Council lasted for 12 hours. Representatives from every colony joined, via secure channels as evidence of the attack was presented. The debate was heated, with some arguing for immediate retaliation while others suggested retreat and fortification of the home system. President Eva Rodriguez silenced the arguments with a raised hand. At 48, she had led Earth through 8 years of unprecedented expansion and prosperity. Now she faced the greatest threat in human history. "The aliens struck without provocation," she said firmly. "They destroyed our ships while we offered peace. We will not hide. We will not abandon our colonies. And we will not start a war we cannot win." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But we will be ready when they come for us." She turned to General Hayes. "Activate Operation Sleeping Giant." A murmur swept through the council. Operation Sleeping Giant was a contingency plan created decades ago, designed to rapidly militarize humanity's space assets in case of external threat. Hayes nodded grimly. "Yes, Madam President." Colonel Mary Donovan wiped sweat from her brow as she moved through the massive hangar. All around her, civilian mining ships were being fitted with military-grade weapons systems. What had once been tools for breaking apart asteroids were now being converted to break apart enemy ships. "The conversion rate is too slow," she told her chief engineer, Sam Vega. "We need to double production." Vega gestured to the hundreds of workers already pushing themselves to exhaustion. "These people have been working 16-hour shifts for 3 days straight." Donovan looked at the latest intelligence reports. Scout ships had detected Corvin vessels moving toward the outer colonies. "Then find more people. The Corvin will reach New Terra in 13 days. Either we meet them with a fleet or we abandon the colony." As she walked away, her comm unit buzzed. "Colonel, there's someone here you need to meet," her assistant said. 5 minutes later, Donovan stood before Dr. Alan Webb, a thin man with tired eyes and rumpled clothing. "I've analyzed the debris from the Swift," Webb said without preamble. "The alien technology is advanced but not unbeatable. Their shield systems operate on specific frequency patterns that we can disrupt." He handed her a data pad showing complex energy diagrams. "We've been ignoring certain electromagnetic bands for weapons because they're inefficient by our standards, but those same bands will tear through Corvin shields like paper." Donovan studied the data. "Can we retrofit our weapons with this technology in time?" Webb nodded. "Already started. Give me 48 hours. And I can modify every weapon in Earth's arsenal." For the first time in days, Donovan felt a spark of hope. Lieutenant Commander Paul Grant stood at the viewport of the orbital shipyard, watching as workers swarmed over the massive hull of the UESC Retribution. Once an obsolete battleship destined for the scrapyard, it was now being rapidly recommissioned as humanity's best hope against the alien threat. "Commander Grant?" He turned to find a young ensign holding a data pad. "Admiral Hayes requests your presence at headquarters, sir." 20 minutes later, Grant stood at attention in Hayes's office. "At ease, Captain," Hayes said. Grant blinked. "Sir, I'm a lieutenant commander." "Not anymore." Hayes handed him a small box containing captain's insignia. "The Retribution needs a commanding officer, someone who understands what we're fighting for and what we're fighting against." Grant's hands trembled slightly as he took the box. He had lost his wife, Lieutenant Sarah Grant, aboard the Horizon. The pain was still fresh, a wound that refused to heal. Sir, there are more experienced officers available, he said quietly. Hayes shook his head. Experience in peacetime means nothing now. I need someone with fire. Someone who won't hesitate when the moment comes. He studied Grant's face. Just don't let your personal feelings cloud your judgment. We need victory, not vengeance, 101. Stiffened. I understand my duty, sir. Hayes nodded, not entirely convinced. The retribution launches in 72 hours. Your crew assignments are already being processed. As Grant left the office, he clutched the insignia box tightly. In his mind, he could still see Sarah's face on their last call before the horizon departed. He had promised to take her dancing when she returned. Some promises couldn't be kept. But he would make a new promise. The aliens would pay for what they had done. Across Earth and its colonies, the awakening continued. Mothballed warships were brought back into service. Civilian vessels were retrofitted with weapons. Training simulators ran day and night as former military personnel were recalled to active duty. In orbit around Mars, the newly formed Sixth Fleet assembled 23 warships ranging from small corvettes to the massive carrier UESC Defiant. Similar fleets gathered at key points throughout human space. Meanwhile, hidden research stations worked feverishly to incorporate Dr. Webb's discoveries into new weapon systems. The modified electromagnetic cannons were tested against S.H.I.E.L.D., technology reverse-engineered from fragments of Corvin debris. The results exceeded all expectations. 9 days after the attack on the horizon, Captain Grant stood on the bridge of the UESC Retribution. Around him, his newly assembled crew worked. At their stations, many still learning the layout of the ship. Engine room reports ready, Captain, said his first officer, Commander Linda Powell. All weapon systems online. Dr. Webb's modifications have been installed and tested. Grant nodded. Communications? Fleet-wide channels established. Admiral I.A. Valdez on the Defiant has assumed overall command of the Defense Force. Grant moved to the main viewport, watching as other ships of the fleet moved into formation. In the distance, Earth glowed blue and white against the blackness of space. Navigator, set course for New Terra, he ordered. Maximum speed. As the Retribution's engines flared to life, Grant thought of the reports from their scout ships. The Corvin Armada was moving steadily toward the colony, clearly intent on eliminating all human presence from the galaxy. They thought humans were dangerous because they evolved on a harsh world. They had no idea what humanity was truly capable of when threatened. The Retribution accelerated away from Earth, leading a fleet of ships that hadn't existed as a fighting force 10 days earlier. Behind them, more vessels were being prepared, more weapons being forged. The Deathworlders were awake now, and they were coming. New Terra glowed blue-green against the blackness of space, its 2 moons orbiting silently. In the command center beneath the colony's capital city, Governor Laura Fields studied the holographic display, showing the positions of both human and alien fleets. How much time do we have? She asked, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her chest. The Corvin Armada will arrive in approximately 6 hours, replied her defense coordinator. The UESC fleet reached our orbit 30 minutes ago and is establishing defensive positions. Fields nodded, watching as blue dots representing human ships moved into formation around her world. New Terra was humanity's largest colony, with nearly 2 million inhabitants. Most were being evacuated to underground shelters, but there wasn't enough space for everyone. Governor, the last transport to Earth leaves in 20 minutes, her aide reminded her. Your seat is reserved. Fields shook her head. I'm staying. My place is here with my people. The aide wanted to argue but knew better. At 43, Laura. Fields had governed New Terra for 7 years. She had never run from a challenge. Then we should get to the command bunker, the aide said instead. As they left the building, Fields looked up at the sky. It was a beautiful day, the air clean and fresh. In the distance, she could see the massive evacuation ships rising through the clouds, carrying children and essential personnel to safety. She wondered if New Terra would ever have days like this again. Admiral Eric Valdez stood on the bridge of the UESC Defiant, watching as his fleet of 78 ships formed a defensive screen around New Terra. It was the impressive force assembled in just 2 weeks, but Valdez knew the Corvin fleet outnumbered them at least 3-1. "Status report," he ordered. "All ships in position, Admiral," his tactical officer responded. "Dr. Webb's shield disruptors have been distributed to all vessels. Ground forces are deployed at strategic locations on the surface." Valdez nodded, then turned to the communications officer. "Patch me through to all ships." When the channel opened, Valdez spoke clearly, his voice reaching every vessel in the human fleet. "This is Admiral Valdez. In a few hours, we will face an enemy that believes we are too dangerous to exist in their galaxy. They call us Deathworlders, creatures evolved on a planet so harsh that it should have killed us long ago." He paused. "Today we will show them why they were right to fear us." Throughout the fleet, crews prepared for battle. Weapons were checked one final time. Engineers made last-minute adjustments to engines and shield systems. On the UESC Retribution, Captain Grant studied the tactical display in his ready room. His ship would lead a strike team targeting the Corvin flagship, using Dr. Webb's technology to exploit the alien shield weakness. "Captain, to the bridge," came the call over the intercom. "Sensors detecting fold space distortions." Grant rushed to his command chair just as space itself seemed to ripple in front of New Terra. One by one, Corvin warships emerged from fold space, angular vessels with glowing red weapon ports and hulls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect. "Count 237 enemy vessels," reported his sensor officer. 238, still coming through." Grant's mouth went dry as he watched the Corvin armada assemble. It was larger than even their worst estimates. "All hands to battle stations," he ordered. "Shields at maximum." On the surface of New Terra, Major Frank Wilson led his Marine unit through final preparations. 2,000 soldiers waited in defensive positions around the colony's main city, ready to repel any ground forces the Corvin might deploy. "Remember your training," Wilson told his troops as they checked their weapons. "These aliens evolved on low-gravity worlds. They're physically weaker than we are. Use that to your advantage." His second-in-command, Lieutenant Carey Brown, approached with a datapad. "Latest intel from orbit, sir. The Corvin have deployed landing craft. Estimated touchdown in 15 minutes. Wilson nodded grimly. "Looks like they want this colony intact. That gives us an edge." He turned to his communications officer. "Alert all units. This is not a drill." As his soldiers moved into position, Wilson couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. Many were colonists who had volunteered when news of the attack on the horizon reached New Terra. They were farmers, teachers, and engineers. Ordinary people defending their home. They were about to show the galaxy what humans could do when pushed. In space, the battle began with a massive volley of energy weapons from the Corvin fleet. The dark emptiness suddenly lit up with hundreds of red beams targeting the human ships. "Evasive maneuvers," Admiral Valdez ordered. "Return fire, human." Vessels broke formation, moving with surprising agility for their size. The Corvin, accustomed to fighting slower, less maneuverable enemies, struggled to track them. On the Retribution, Captain Grant gripped his chair as the ship shuddered under enemy fire. "Shields holding at 70%, his tactical officer reported. "The modifications are working," Grant nodded. "Activate Webb's disruptors, target the lead Corvin ship." A beam of pulsing blue energy shot from the Retribution, striking a massive Corvin cruiser. For a moment, nothing happened. Then suddenly, the alien vessel's shields flickered and failed. "All weapons fire," Grant ordered. The Retribution unleashed its full arsenal on the now vulnerable ship. Conventional missiles and energy weapons tore through the alien hull, causing a series of explosions that ripped the vessel apart. Throughout the human fleet, other ships activated their disruptors with similar results. The Corvin, confident in their superior technology, had never expected their shields to fail so completely. "Admiral," Grant called over the fleet channel, "the disruptors work. Recommend all ships engage with Webb's technology." Valdez didn't hesitate. "All vessels. Target enemy shields with disruptors, then follow with conventional weapons. Focus fire on their larger ships first." The tide of battle began to shift. Though still outnumbered, The human fleet was inflicting serious damage on the Corvan armada, but the aliens were adapting quickly. Their ships began moving in unpredictable patterns, making them harder to hit, and there were still so many of them. "Admiral," called his tactical officer, "enemy vessels are approaching New Terra's asteroid belt." Valdez studied the tactical display, then smiled. "Perfect. Signal Hunter Squadron, execute Operation Slingshot." A group of 12 small, nimble human fighters broke from the main fleet and raced toward the asteroid belt, drawing several Corvan cruisers after them. Unlike the aliens, human pilots were accustomed to high-gravity environments. As the fighters dove into the dense field of rocks, the pursuing Corvan found themselves at a severe disadvantage. The human pilots pulled maneuvers that subjected them to forces that would have knocked an alien unconscious. One by one, the Corvan ships collided with asteroids or each other, unable to match the humans' reflexes and physical endurance. On the surface, the first Corvan troops landed outside the main colony. They moved with caution, clearly uncomfortable and new. Terra's gravity, which was slightly higher than Earth's. Major Wilson watched through binoculars as the aliens deployed. They wore heavy armor suits, presumably to help them function in the higher gravity. It made them slow. "Hold fire until they're within range," he ordered his troops. "Let them come to us." The Corvan advanced in neat formations, their weapons ready. They had clearly expected minimal resistance from what they considered a primitive species. What they found instead was a well-prepared defense force that knew the terrain intimately. As the aliens entered the effective range of human weapons, Wilson gave the order. "Fire!" The first volley cut down dozens of Corvan soldiers. The aliens scattered, seeking cover, but human snipers positioned on rooftops continued to pick them off. "Second squad, flank left," Wilson ordered. "Third squad, with me." He led his troops in a quick dash between buildings, moving to attack the Corvan from behind. The aliens turned to face this new threat, but they moved sluggishly in their heavy armor. In close combat, the difference became even more apparent. Human soldiers, born and raised in Earth's gravity or similar colonial conditions, were simply faster and stronger. Where the Corvan had to rely on technology to function, humans used their natural abilities, honed by evolution on a Deathworld. The battle raged across the colony for hours, but the outcome was increasingly clear. The aliens had severely underestimated what they were facing. In orbit, Captain Grant received an unexpected message. "Sir, we're detecting new fold space signatures," his communications officer reported. "But these don't match Corvan patterns." Grant tensed, preparing for new enemies. Instead, elegant blue ships emerged, the vessels of the Avari. "Incoming transmission," the officer announced. On the main screen appeared the now familiar face of High Counselor Zri. "Captain Grant," the Avari said, "the Corvan have acted against Consortium authority. We are here to negotiate a ceasefire." Grant stared at the screen, thoughts of his dead wife flooding his mind. In that moment, all he wanted was to continue the fight, to make the aliens pay for what they had done. "Captain?" Zri prompted. Grant's finger hovered over the weapons control. One command, and the retribution would fire on the Avari ship. Justice or vengeance. The choice would determine humanity's future among the stars. Captain Paul Grant's finger hovered over the weapons control. One command and the retribution would fire on the Avari ship. His breathing came fast and shallow as images of his wife's face flashed through his mind. "Captain Grant," High Counselor Zri said again, feathers rippling with concern. "We had no knowledge of the Corvan attack plan. Please, enough blood has been spilled today." Grant felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Commander Linda Powell, his first officer. "Sir," she said quietly, "this isn't what Sarah would want." The captain closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his hand moved away from the weapons panel. "This is Admiral Valdez," came a new voice over the fleet channel. "All ships ceasefire. I repeat, ceasefire. The Avari are not our enemies." Grant took a deep breath. "Acknowledged, Admiral. Retribution standing down." On the main screen, Zri's feathers relaxed slightly. "Thank you, Captain. The Consortium Council requests a formal meeting on our neutral station Harmony. We have much to discuss." As the human fleet disengaged from battle, Grant looked out at the debris field that had once been Corvin ships. They had won today, but at what cost? And what would come next? 3 days later, a small delegation of human representatives arrived at Harmony Station. The massive structure floated in deep space, its design a blend of technologies from dozens of alien species. Inside, the station was filled with beings of all shapes and sizes, many stopping to stare at the humans as they passed. Admiral Valdez led the delegation with Captain Grant, Dr. Alan Webb, and Ambassador Nicole Warren walking beside him. Guards from the UESC Peacekeeper, Earth's newest warship, provided escort. "They're afraid of us," Warren observed, noting how other species gave them a wide berth. "Can you blame them?" Valdez replied. "They just watched us defeat a fleet 3 times our size. They were led to a large circular chamber where representatives from the 27 consortium species waited. The Avari sat in a position of prominence, while the remaining Corvin delegates were noticeably isolated from the others. High Counselor Zri rose as the humans entered. "Representatives of Earth, we welcome you to Harmony." Ambassador Warren stepped forward. At 58, she had spent decades in diplomatic service, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. "We come seeking justice and understanding," she said firmly. "The unprovoked attack on our ships and colony cannot go unanswered." A tall, thin alien with gray skin and large eyes stood. "I am Speaker Trin of the Malosian Unity. The Corvin have already been sanctioned for their actions. Their fleet admiral has been removed and will face trial." Warren nodded. "That is a start. But we need to understand why this happened. Why were we attacked simply for existing?" Zri gestured to a holographic display in the center of the room. It showed Earth alongside several alien worlds. "To understand, you must see what we see," Zri explained. "This is Earth, your homeworld." The image zoomed in, showing details of Earth's environment, its gravity readings, atmospheric composition, temperature variations, radiation levels. "And these are the homeworlds of consortium species." The difference was striking. Earth had nearly twice the gravity of most alien worlds. Its temperature range was extreme by their standards. Its atmosphere contained elements toxic to many species. "In our history," Zri continued, "species that evolved on worlds like yours, Deathworlds, as we call them, rarely achieve spaceflight. The harsh conditions of their planets usually drive them to conflict and self-destruction before they reach the stars." "And those who do?" Grant asked, already suspecting the answer. A Corvin representative spoke for the first time, voice harsh and accusatory. "They become conquerors. The few Deathworlder species in galactic history used their physical advantages to subjugate others. The last such species caused a war that lasted 3 centuries. Dr. Webb stepped forward. "So you attacked us based on what other species did? That's not justice, it's prejudice." The chamber erupted in multiple alien languages, translators struggling to keep up with the heated debate. Admiral Valdez raised his hand for silence. "We came here seeking peace," he said. "We still do. But make no mistake, if attacked again, we will defend ourselves." After hours of tense discussion, the council called for a recess. As the human delegation waited in a side chamber, Dr. Olivia Martinez arrived from Earth with new information. A leading xenobiologist, she had been studying the limited data available on consortium species. "I have something you need to see," she told Ambassador Warren, showing her a datapad. "It's an analysis of human social evolution compared to other Deathworld species." When the council reconvened, Martinez was given permission to speak. "Respected council members," she began, "you fear humans because of our physical capabilities. Yes, we evolved on a harsh world that made us stronger, faster, and more durable than many of your species. But our environment shaped us in another way." Martinez displayed charts showing human history. Unlike previous Deathworld species, we turned our adaptability inward. Rather than only developing tools to overcome our environment, we developed complex social structures. We learned to work together, to compromise, to settle disputes without violence. She highlighted key moments in human history: the end of world wars, the formation of global government, the peaceful expansion to other planets. Yes, we have the capacity for great violence, she admitted, but we also have the capacity for great compassion. We don't want to conquer, we want to join you as equals. The council chamber grew quiet as her words were translated across all species. Even the Corvin representatives seemed thoughtful. High Counselor Zri finally broke the silence. Dr. Martinez presents a compelling case. Perhaps we have been too quick to judge humanity by standards of the past. Slowly, a consensus began to form. The Corvin would make reparations for their unprovoked attack. The consortium would recognize human territory and sovereignty, and most importantly, a path would be opened for Earth to eventually join the consortium as a full member. 1 year later, Ambassador Warren stood again before the Consortium Council. This time, she was there to establish formal diplomatic relations with 12 alien species who had chosen to work directly with humanity. We are pleased to announce the opening of trade routes between Earth and Avari worlds, she said. Our scientists have already begun sharing research in medical technology and environmental management. The changes of the past year had been remarkable. Humanity had proven itself a valuable ally, offering innovations that consortium species had never considered, approaches to problems that only a Deathworld species would think to try. Meanwhile, Earth continued its classified Pax Humana program, building a fleet powerful enough to defend against any future betrayal. Trust was growing, but human leaders remembered the lessons of first contact all too well. On the observation deck of Harmony Station, Captain Grant stood beside Zri, watching. Ships from a dozen worlds come and go. Your people have adapted well to galactic society, the Avari observed. Grant nodded. It's what we do. Adapt, survive, thrive. He had been assigned as military attaché to the consortium, a role that once would have seemed impossible to him. The pain of Sarah's loss remained, but it had dulled with time and purpose. I lost family in the conflict too, Zri said unexpectedly. My clutch brother was aboard one of the Avari ships destroyed in the crossfire. Grant turned to the alien, seeing him in a new light. I'm sorry. I didn't know. How could you? In war, we see enemies, not people. Zri's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. That is why this piece is so important. Below them, the docking bay opened to admit a new vessel, the UESC Peacekeeper, Earth's most advanced warship, gleaming with technology that blended human ingenuity with consortium science. The council chamber, Ambassador Warren was finishing her address to the gathered representatives. Humanity comes from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years, she said, her voice calm but firm. We don't want war, but never mistake our desire for peace as weakness. For your sake and ours, don't call our bluff. As the Peacekeeper settled into its berth, its massive engines powering down, Warren's final words echoed through the station. We were born on a death world, but we choose life. We choose cooperation. We choose to build rather than destroy. That is the true strength of humanity. Not that we survived our harsh world, but that we rose above it. The consortium representatives stood one by one, a sign of respect in most galactic cultures. Even the Corvin delegates rose, albeit reluctantly. The Deathworlders had earned their place among the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same.